T-minus 17 seconds and counting. 15, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Go for main engine start. Main engine start. 2, 1. Booster ignition and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery, returning to the space station, paving the way for future missions beyond.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another conversation sheltered in place. I hope this finds everybody healthy and safe and navigating this crisis that we call 2020. This is, I'm really excited about today's, I'm excited about I say that every every week I say I'm really excited because I am, but I'm especially excited this week because not only do I have a fellow converser who is going to share a lot of really important information that everybody could benefit from, but also it's going to be a lot of fun. And so I have the great honor of bringing on board today someone that I've been able to do 4 spacewalks with over the course of my career, and kind of served as my mentor, as my spacewalk mentor on my first mission, and that's Mike Fossum. And just going to cover his bio real quick because it is impressive, and it sets the stage for what we're going to talk about, because there's a lot of his experience that he's had that I think is really applicable to navigating not just COVID-19, not just the isolation, not just the fact that we all live in a hostile environment, but also as an educator. And I know a lot of people are thinking about what back to school is going to look like. And so he can talk about that. But Mike Fossum currently serves as the Vice President of Texas A&M University, the Chief Operating Officer of the Galveston campus, and the Superintendent of the Texas A&M Maritime Academy. Mike joined Texas A&M following his retirement from NASA in 2017. Mike is the veteran of 3 space flights with more than 194 days in space and more than 48 hours in 7 spacewalks, 4 of which were with me during his 19 years as an astronaut. During his last mission in 2011, Mike serves as the commander of the International Space Station. He has logged over 2,000 hours in 35 different aircraft throughout the course of his career. Mike earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering from Texas A&M University and was commissioned as an officer in the U.S. Air Force in 1980. He's also a graduate of the U.S. Air Force Test Pilot School and has earned Master of Science degrees in Systems Engineering and Physical and Space Science. Mike was born in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and grew up in McAllen, Texas. He is married to his Aggie sweetheart, the former Milani London, and they have 4 children and 6 grandchildren. And Mike has been a lifelong supporter and volunteer with the Boy Scouts of America. And so please help me welcome my spacewalking pal, Mike Fossum, to the conversation. Hey, Mike.
Ron, it's great to see you again, buddy.
Are you ready?
I was born ready.
So we'll start off with an inside joke. So Mike and I, like I said, we've done 4 spacewalks or EVAs together, and I don't know, we've probably spent hundreds of hours underwater in the NBL, the Neutral Buoyancy Lab, this giant pool in Houston, 40 feet deep. It's got a full scale mock-up of the space station in there, and so we put our spacesuits on, we'd be on the platform, and they would raise up with a crane and lower us into the water. And before they did that, every single time we did it, the controller would say, "You guys ready?" And Mike would say,
"I was born ready."
Born ready. I don't remember what I used to say, but I remember that's what you used to say every time. So Mike, thanks for joining.
You bet. It's fun to do this and actually just talk to you again too, Ron. Been a while.
It's been a while. So we've got a lot to talk about, and I just want to remind everybody. Let's pull up the comments. Join in with this is not just a conversation between 2 people. It's a conversation with all of us, everybody who's watching right now. And I see people are joining from all around the world. There's Alex Dagan. Hey, Alex. Former head of science and technology for USAID. Good to see you. Juana Rubin. Hey. And if you have questions, pop them in. There's Evan. Hey, Evan. So yeah, just be part of this, and Keith Heitner's on board too. So we got the New York contingent here. So everybody's joining. So why don't we start by just talking about you are one of the leaders of Texas A&M University. What is the plan for the fall and getting students back being educated again? So.
This is hard. It really is. I'm very actively involved in those discussions. In fact, I just stepped out of one to jump in here with the top leadership in College Station. We are moving forward to bring students back on campus. In fact, I've had my first group of students on campus this week. We started a slow move into the residence halls of the dorms, and we had students go through what we call a howdy week and like a freshman camp. And it's important to bring them in because it's different. It's not anything we've done before. Certainly they haven't done before. But it means masks when you're outside of your private office, where I'm located now, or your private dorm room. If you're in any public place, inside you're wearing a mask 100% of the time, except when you're sitting at the cafeteria table. Those seating is greatly spread out to give the physical distancing. And we're not saying social distancing anymore. We're saying physical distancing, and we want social connections.
Okay. Yeah.
That's part of what we're talking about here, right? So, bringing it back slow and helping everybody, employees included, getting used to these rules that we can do. One thing is we know that the students are so eager to get back. For me, I had the chance to talk to the group 2 times this week while they were here, and they don't know what the college freshman experience was like last year or when their parents were in college. They don't know, but they're excited to experience it for themselves, and they recognize it's going to be different, and we're all working through this, but they're definitely excited to be here. And for me, it was a little strange because we haven't had students here in large numbers since spring break way back in March, and the spring break that never ended. And even periods of time, I would worked here throughout, but I'd go a month or more without seeing another person on campus in my building for sure.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. At the same time, it's to take.
Daunting, yeah.
Yep.
So I've heard of other universities stretching out their day, so they have more classes so that they could have less students in each class.
Yeah, we've got to space them out. We're using a conference center room for a larger classroom now. We're starting the day at 8 in the morning. Classes start. They'll be going till 8 in the evening. To a little more time between classes to allow clearing of the halls. Midday, we're taking a break. No classes for a period of time midday, and we'll do a full sweep to clean. Do a deep clean and classroom spaces and labs in the middle of the day.
Yeah, I just did mean to jump in there, but I just popped up the note from Michael Flood. If anybody is having a problem hearing this, let us know, and we'll see what we can do. So here's a note from.
Yeah, I saw that. And as far as some people are deciding not to, absolutely, that's I completely support that. It's up to families to decide what to do. And I'm not meaning to denigrate that personal decision people are making. We're doing the best we can do. And we can't stop students from going off campus and socializing in town. We're encouraging them not to, but they are college students. And so we are going with a mix. Many of our classes will be taught online. All of them will be available online, but the classes, if it's a face-to-face class, we'll be broadcasting it also. But it's pedagogically, it's not really set up to be an online instruction. So It's available for viewing, but so we're working through those things. We've got the technology in every classroom and every laboratory now, so we can record it and push it out.
Are you putting in place testing and contact tracing protocols as well?
We've got contact tracing set up here. We've got testing set up here. The Texas A&M University system is providing tests. We don't have 100% coverage for all the people on the campus, but we started administering tests here just over a week and a half ago. We've administered about 100 tests, and so far 100% negative, which is great. We're doing the student leaders and staff members that we're working with, the incoming freshmen this week, were all tested ahead of time. So we've got we will be doing random testing, as well as people that are in high contact areas. We'll be doing more frequent testing.
Okay, and is masks in the classroom mandatory?
Yep, absolutely.
All right. I live in a college town right now, and I just there seems to be a lot of college parties on the front lawns of houses, and I don't see any masks.
Yep. And and the students that were on board this week, there was a little bit of pushback the first day, but by the second, third days, they're flexing with it, and so it's like, okay, that helps a lot.
All right. Well, we've got a lot of questions. So let me pop up some of these right now. The first one I think is going to change our topic. Where is it? Oh, there it is. So here's a question from Evan. What's it like taking the first step out into space, knowing you're miles up? So Mike, I told you that I'm writing this new book, Floating in Darkness, right? You're a major character in this book, and you're also in the book, besides being a major character in the book. So now that I'm an author, I can use words,
right,
in multiple ways, right? So they're obviously our first. Let me see. I talk about 3 of our spacewalks in the book, okay, briefly. Obviously, starting with the first one, and I remember, when I went out the door for the first time, and I'm about to embark on the most, incredible thing I can imagine doing, stepping out into the vacuum of space, wearing nothing but a thin little spacesuit, and you being the old head, having done 3 previous spacewalks, had some words of advice for me. But let me preface this with, when you opened the hatch, so you were in head first into the airlock. I was in feet first. After we get shoved into the airlock, all of our tools and equipment get shoved into, and there's basically no room to move. We're like, sardines inside a tin can. And we get the go from Hawk, Ken Ham, that we're cleared to open the hatch and head outside. So you open the hatch, and as soon as the hatch opened up, it's just the airlock flooded with this blue light of Earthshine, reflected light from the Earth. And so I watch your feet retreat away from me out through the hatch. I flipped over and I start handing out everything. I made my way to the source of the Earthshine, right? This big hole in the bottom of the space station, this circular hole, which is the hatch. Hand out everything, and then as the old head, as my mentor, you had some words of advice for me. Do you remember what the words of advice were?
Sure you do. Don't look down.
Yeah, don't look down. So, but I had to look down. Down was the way out, right? So it was pretty amazing on that. I don't know about with your first time, but my first time, it seemed surreal, as if I was watching something unfold, a movie, like a video. Right. Yeah. And what are some of the most memorable experiences on an EVA that you've had?
That first step, like you said, it is nothing prepares you for it mentally. All of hundreds and hundreds of hours we trained in the pool, and even getting in and out of the airlock and managing the safety tethers and stuff. But for me, it was sliding out of the airlock, and I went out feet first, so I actually hadn't seen outside until my helmet cleared the hatch, and
wow.
And so it's like, for me, I remember the space station suspended, just beautiful, shining, the colors and light reflecting off of it, very different from the pool, where it's a little grungy and like in paint and stuff like that, and a support structure, and
the bottom of the pool is 6 feet below you.
Yeah. And then I remember looking down, and there's a space shuttle hanging off the end of the station there. That's our ride. And my eyes followed that, and I looked down 250 miles to the ground going by at 5 miles a second. And nothing between my toes, and the surface of the earth. Well, there was some atmosphere way down there, but I was like, whew, I felt my hands tighten up. And I looked at Pierce Sellers, who was, my senior spacewalker, and he was grinning as he watched the emotions played across my face.
Did he tell you not to look down?
He told me lots of stuff. He didn't say anything at first. He just gave me a little wink and a nod in his very British way. It's like, you got this, Michael.
Yeah. So, hey, we got a note from Tim. Nice shirt, Mike. So I wore this shirt in honor of you, Mike, this STS 124 shirt. So
you bet. And I couldn't find my 120, my Expedition 28 shirt this morning, and anyway, I grabbed an Expedition 29, and Tim Gagnon was the chief artist for that patch.
Yeah. So you mentioned Pierce Sellers. What a great human, and I had the opportunity to spend some time with him. Probably about 4 months before he passed away. He's a great astronaut, great spacewalker. Unfortunately, contracted cancer and passed away. A great champion of our planet. He devoted the last few years of his life to trying to raise awareness about global warming. He's a climate scientist. And I remember I was with Mark Kelly and myself and Pierce were cooking, baking pizzas out in the desert together. And I mentioned to him, I said, you're kind of my grand mentor, because you were Mike's EVA mentor and Mike was my EVA mentor. That makes you my grand mentor.
Yeah.
But what a great guy. What a loss for the planet. Yeah. So let me see some others. I'm scrolling through the questions here. There's a bunch of them. Here's one on pilot training. Training pilots is a challenge during COVID. It's a great time to take the time to learn how to manage risk. So, I imagine pilot training is pretty tough right now. Although in jet fighters, you're wearing a mask anyway, an oxygen mask, so you are somewhat isolated there. But the second part of that question about managing risk, that's probably a good topic of discussion right now, because you, as a leader of Texas A&M University, you are in charge, or one of the people in charge of managing risk right now. And balancing risk, right? So there's a risk benefit trade-off that you have to manage. You have to mitigate the risk to the students and the faculty, but you also have to educate folks too. So you're trying to balance all that. Can you speak to that at all?
No, and folks, I just want to say hi to Pam Olson too. It's like, oh, wait a minute, I know you. It is, and we're in unprecedented times. We've talked about that, and it's a strange time for the country in every possible way. And how do we get businesses reopened? We can't shut down the world. We've got to figure out what we can do, and we've got to manage the risk associated with it. So that's what we're all trying to do, whether we're running a business or running a family. I have a daughter with 4 kids, and they can only stay cooped up in the house so much, and so they're making decisions about who they do spend time with, and who they don't. I had another son with his family were visiting us a few weeks ago. They just moved home from 5 years overseas, and but my daughter said, we're around too many other people, and we probably don't want to come mix all those associations together. So that's the kind of things. Melania and I are heading to Dallas for a family wedding. We're going to be kind of helping out with some grandkids while the parents are more involved, and and making decisions about, are we going to stop in and see other family that are in the area. And I think the conclusion was, no, we probably just ought not to right now.
Yeah.
It's tough. We're, and the same thing on campus. That's why we're doing some of our classes, or will be delivered online, and we're saving the in-person stuff for when we get into the laboratories and the other hands-on kind of instruction and field work that we have here.
So a lot of the students, especially like the freshmen that are coming on board, this college is a new experience to begin with. They're away from home for the first time. A lot of folks are coming right out of months of isolation into that. There's obviously the threat of getting COVID. There, a lot of kids might be coming from families whose parents don't have jobs anymore, and there's financial. So there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of mental health issues that are associated with what's going on. How are you guys dealing with that? Are the things that you're putting in place to help students deal with the ramp up in stress that we'll see?
Absolutely. We're doing it. I mean, for the students. Now, the students, and I got to talk to a bunch of them, and they so much, want to be moving forward. They're not sure what it looks like, and we're working on it together. But they want to be moving forward, and they're very clear about that. Many of them, there was almost nothing really effective done for their education since March.
Right.
Everybody kind of shut down, and schools did their best to cope. I think at the university level, we might have had more tools, more technology available to start pushing. We started offering online classes with, we extended spring break 1 week, and we were online. It was far from perfect, but we were getting it done. And they're older students, more disciplined. Some struggled, some dropped. They just couldn't make the adjustment. I have 2 kids in college right now. One's working on a master's degree, and he found it to be horrible because he's a very interactive social person. Mm-hmm. He likes the dynamics of being in the classroom a lot. Our youngest one, he's fine. If he never went into a classroom again, he'd be fine. He wants to get in, and he's saving, his exposure time for a lab. He's going to be doing a lab he's really excited about in this next year.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about isolation for a minute. Here's a question. So we spent how many months together in space? Have you been in
4 to 5? Yeah,
4 or 5 months. So
I'm sorry, we can't. The statute of limitations hasn't expired.
Yeah. So that's a good segue into talking about life in isolation, right? Because we have both had a career functioning in a hostile environment, and a lot of times that was isolated. When we launch, both times that we launched. Well, I can't speak for your Soyuz flight, but I know on the shuttle flight, we had a couple of days in space on the shuttle before we docked to the space station and got to a somewhat spacious environment. Were you a direct rendezvous or on?
No, we were a 2-day rendezvous.
That's right. Yeah, now I remember that now. So both of us spent 2.5 days cooped up in a teeny little spacecraft before we hit the space station.
Cartwheeling across.
Yeah, tumbling around the Earth, which I really enjoyed those couple of days. Although we had a malfunction on our spacecraft, and it required us to keep the temperature on full cold. So it was pretty cold. It was pretty cold.
Forgot that.
But dealing with isolation, and there's a lot of things that we did to deal with isolation. One is to find time to have fun, right? I mean, to do things that are fun. You want to? I have an example I can give, but do you have anything you want to say about that?
Well, you've got to find ways to break up the patterns, and if we find that, in space, we find that now coping with stuff, and different ways to break up the patterns, and maybe to bring a little bit of joy into your life, or to bring it into your life by helping bring it to somebody else.
Yeah.
And and so I think that was, when we were up there, and I gotta preface it before we get into it. We had some stressful times up there.
Yeah.
Because it was, we had the last space shuttle flight in July, and we were
the last flight. Well, you weren't there yet. Well, we had right before you got there. We had the last flight of Endeavour, and then we had the last flight of Atlantis, which was the last flight of any shuttle ever.
The last of a 30-year program.
Right.
In July of 2011, and when they left, it was like, wow, that's the end of that. We'll never see a flying space shuttle again. It was really cool to be part of that. And then when was it that the Progress, the Russian resupply ship went?
That was 2 weeks before I was supposed to return with my two Russian crewmates.
October.
Yeah, no, it was earlier than that. So we had a Russian cargo ship have an accident that initially was going to delay my flight's return by 2 months.
Yeah, well, and that was
which led to some songwriting.
Yeah. Well, that rocket was very, very similar to this the one they used for launching humans, right. And so we knew within a minute. I mean, on board, we said, "Oh, this is a big deal." We had enough food and probably enough other supplies because that last space shuttle had really filled our pantry. But it was still a big deal because figuring out what failed in a rocket and what you're going to do to fix it is hard. So we were actually pretty worried about that, and we figured out right away. There's no way Ron and his guys are going home because we need a full crew up here.
Right.
You were supposed to come home in 2 weeks, and all of a sudden the rumors started flying that it was going to be 2 months.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to get home, before Thanksgiving. And I called talked to my wife and said, "Don't believe anything you hear. I won't be home until New Year's."
Yeah.
They're gonna.
It's funny. I got the call up and they asked me, Ron, we think we might have to delay your return by 2 months. What are your thoughts on that? And I said, has the decision to delay 2 months already been made? And they said, yes, it's already been made. I said, then I think it's a great idea.
Well, but it's the same. Well, we salute and we do what we're called to do at the same time, especially when you get into 2 weeks like that. It's a blow,
Yeah.
It really is, because you love what you're doing, but you're kind of ready for this to be over. As awesome as it is, you're kind of looking forward to a hot shower and real food. Well, so we started doing some stuff to have a little bit of fun.
Yeah, so sometimes some crazy stuff. Here, I'm gonna show everybody one of the crazy things we did, and we made this video, and I won't show the whole thing. I'll put the link up for you guys to see it, but NASA is really, really sensitive about putting commercial products in a video. And I made this video and I watched it like 50 times before I saw a product placement in the video. So I'm gonna see if anybody can spot it. But one of our crewmates, and it's not Mike or I, decided in the middle of the video to do a little product placement. So we'll see if you can catch that.
I've never noticed this.
Okay, well look carefully. I'm still hungry. The space business really makes me hungry.
Well, maybe before we get the dessert and stuff.
We should eat a little more. You know what I'm really in the mood for?
Oh, I know what you're thinking.
What do you think?
I think we should do it.
Yeah.
Let's call him.
What do you think I'm in the mood for, though?
I think it's pizza.
Pizza.
What do you miss the most? I mean, some real bread, chewy bread, warm, smell the pizza sauce, the pepperoni.
I haven't had pizza in more than 5.5 months.
More than 5.5 months.
Yeah, like 7 months. No pizza in 7 months. I'm from New York. You know what that's like? Not having pizza in 7 months?
Yeah.
That's bad news. But there's these outfits that guarantee delivery within 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
We've got
guarantee anywhere, 30-minute delivery.
We got a phone.
Right?
That's right. Anywhere. We've got a phone. Let's check it out and see if it works. That'd be cool, huh?
Yeah. Well, that would work really good. Yeah, that'll work good.
So where are we right now? Oh, we're over Africa. 30 minutes. We'll be over Houston.
Okay. That'll be about perfect.
Oh,
yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. Yeah, let's go.
Got a payday out of the deal. All right. Did you see it? Did you see the product placement?
I did.
I don't know how I missed that. I mean, Satoshi's in the background holding up a candy bar, with the label showing. So anyway, I won't show the rest of that, but I'm gonna pop this up on the screen. This is you can watch the whole video there. We end up calling an outfit that guarantees delivery in 30 minutes. And so you could see.
So waiting for the knock at the hatch.
That's right. That's right. So, yeah, that's in.
Ryan got writing some music too.
Yeah, I don't have that video queued up, but yeah, we played the ISS Blues. So one of the things that builds resilience in isolation and expeditionary behavior and all that is to kind of roll with the punches and like you said, Mike, to think about what the team is going through. And so when we got word that we were going to be delayed 2 months on our return, I realized that there were a whole bunch of people in mission control rooms around the world that are canceling vacations now and, all kinds of stuff. So we made a silly video where I wrote a song called the ISS Blues and we and made a silly video about it. And the purpose of it was to try and, cheer everybody up and to put a light spin on things. And I think, humor is a really important part of being able to deal with any crisis, is to be able to see the silliness in the whole thing too. So,
and it is a little bit of the humor and all. And I think a big part of it too, and we see that is, again, it's back to the terminology, social distancing. No, physical distancing. We got to be socially connected, and we had to be there for each other in space, because it was when you're in a stressful situation like that, none of us could go home. None of us could take a weekend off. None of us could take a run through the park. So, we really were in a can together, the 6 of us from 3 different nations, like that, getting through this and working through those emotions and all. You were already isolated, but we were busy, and there was an end. You launched and you knew when you were coming home. And that's what was hard, was a sudden change of expectations. Because all of a sudden you're not going home in 2 weeks. The hot shower and your wife and family are not waiting for you, are not going to be there in 2 weeks. They will, but you won't. And so, it just helping everybody deal with that, giving each other a little more grace. And I've seen exactly the same thing, through here. Tension, people are tired. We've had, so many people working just routinely right now at the university, are working 12 to 14-hour days, 7 days a week, trying, as we're working through all of the challenges that we have. And, and it's just tempers flare a little bit sometimes, give them a little bit of space. And also reach out. I mean, for me, something, and people knew that I've been working hard too. And I opened up a big envelope that showed up, and I had cards from my folks from around the campus. A lot of my campus, the groups, divisions from around the campus. It written like thank you cards to me. I've reread those cards a lot, and it's just that touch, saying thank you, even though I haven't seen them face to face now for months. But still, it's maintaining the human contacts. I try to reach out to at least one old friend a day just to say, hi, how you doing?
Yeah. So, I mean, we talk about this a lot in expeditionary behavior, and that is the importance of self-care, right? That you don't do the team or the mission or your company or your family any good if you yourself are, not getting enough rest, not getting enough downtime. And so that's really important. The other thing, and I think which you bring up in this story about the cards, is one of the best ways to boost your immunity or your immune system is through empathy and compassion and caring for others, right? And so that's a proven fact that when you demonstrate empathy and compassion for others, that boosts your immune system, it benefits yourself. And so not only do we need to look for those telltale signs in others, other people on the team, that they're, maybe getting a little short-tempered, or they seem tired, or they seem stressed, or whatever. But we need to look within too. We keep track of ourselves too. And I think that I think we're answering this question from Mike Flood. But basically, are there pearls of wisdom mentally facing isolation and loneliness that are not too obvious nor easily read on the internet? So,
yeah. I've got some thoughts on that. And for me, I found the same thing in space, because I tend to work too many hours and not sleep enough hours. And I definitely had that happen in space. And you may have a few paragraphs about when I get grumpy, in your upcoming book. I don't know, but I would realize I'm starting to get a little short. My temper emotions would be raw, and I realized I was just out of emotional reserves, and something that wouldn't normally bother me started to come out, and I realized I wouldn't get enough sleep. And so I would even on orbit trying to force myself to get a little more sleep. I got the exercise up there because I was a test subject in a program where I had to get the exercise on a regular schedule. But early in this COVID shutdown, I did the same thing. I wasn't sleeping nearly enough, and I was not exercising for the first few weeks. There was just so much to do. I couldn't justify that. I just wasn't taking the time. And I realized I was getting really run down, and I can't keep up this pace. I've got to moderate. I've got to make sure I get the rest that I need, and I've got to start getting some exercise. And so I started doing that on a very regular basis, always riding the edge of not enough sleep, but getting the exercise in there, good nutrition. And I have not gained weight during this. I've been very careful. And but self-care. You've got to take care of yourself. Manage your own emotional reserves, so you've got a little extra to help a buddy out.
Yeah. Just going to pop this up on the screen real quick. This is from Aaron Sharoni. Yes, here's where you make the comments and questions. So anybody who wants to join in this conversation, just put them. If you're watching on YouTube or you're watching on Facebook, it doesn't matter. We'll just type them in the comment section, and we will see that. So here's something from Gail asking for your advice on incoming freshmen.
Hello, Gail. Good to see you. Good Aggie mom there, Squadron 3 Aggie mom. I think it's as I actually talked to a bunch of the students yesterday, and I asked them something. And this is my advice, is I asked them to stand up and give their name, where they're from, and then not their major. I don't want to know your major. I want to know what's your dream. What do you want to accomplish in the next 40 years? What big thing do you want to be proud of having done? And it was really interesting to hear that. And some of them were very specific, and they knew what path, where they wanted to go. And some were very, I'm not sure, or I want to do good for people. And it was great. That's great. That these were all engineering students, and I told them, your task in the next months ahead is to figure out what part of this engineering stuff really rings a bell. Get you excited, because in order to persevere, in order to be successful, you've got to have a vision. You've got to have something that is driving you to stay up, to gut your way through the calculus and physics and the chemistry and all that great stuff. It's hard stuff for almost all students, but the ones that are driven with a purpose, they get through it.
Yeah. So, Mike, I don't know the answer to this. Maybe you do. But training and launching of flight crews right now. They're dealing with COVID just like everybody else. So do you have any insight into?
Yeah, some from of course, the training, it's gotten harder. Much smaller teams. Most of NASA is not working on site right now. At Johnson Space Center, I'm sure it's at other centers too. The crew training has to be done. It has to be, but they've shifted what they can offline. But you've got to be in the simulator, and you've got to have people that are supporting you. So they're all wearing the PPE. I'm sure they're going through frequent testing. The pre-quarantine period was already pretty stringent. I do not have any insights for what it's like for the crews that are training in Star City. Or other countries around the globe. I have not heard. I haven't heard about that. But the pre-quarantine was already pretty rigorous, especially in Kazakhstan before we launched on the Russian Soyuz rocket. It's gotten worse, longer, smaller groups, and nobody traveling. No guests going over to Russia, or almost, I think none over to Russia. There were a very, very small number of people even that went down to the Doug and Bob's launch, SpaceX launch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hey, let's talk about SpaceX launch for a second, because it was funny that you and I were on the space station when Atlantis undocked for the last time, and Fergie, the commander of Atlantis, brought up a flag, an American flag that flew on STS-1. So it flew on the first space shuttle, and it flew on the last space shuttle, right?
Yeah.
And so Fergie was the commander of that mission, and Doug Hurley was the pilot, and they handed the flag over to us to put onto the forward hatch of
Space station.
of the hatch that the shuttles docked to. And when we closed the hatch, when those guys flew through the hatch and we closed it, we were closing a chapter on the U.S. space program.
30-year chapter.
Yeah. And what we said at the time in that press conference was, when we open that hatch, when a new spacecraft that launches from American soil docks to that hatch and we open it, we will be opening up a new chapter of space exploration that will take us beyond low Earth orbit. And so we always joked that this was the capture of the flag, to see who was going to be the first one to capture the flag. And what was funny was the two of the guys that were competing to capture the flag were Fergie and Doug Hurley.
You couldn't have imagined that.
Yeah. And so Doug's up there right now with Bob Benkin. Both those guys are astronaut classmates of mine, and Doug is a test pilot school classmate of mine too. And so that was we got to be part of that history, and now we get to see that unfold and see that next chapter open up. Any thoughts on that?
Well, it was, number one, it was really somber. I mean, when Atlantis backed away, when we closed that hatch, it was a whirlwind of activity for the.
Yeah, I remember somebody opened up some shutters to take pictures that maybe wasn't supposed to be doing that.
Yeah.
I don't know who that was.
Really good photos I've heard of Atlantis backing away. I wasn't going to miss that shot. Yeah, I'm not really a rule breaker often, but I wasn't.
I didn't say it was you. I just said somebody.
I wasn't. Somebody did it. Yeah. But it was actually pretty somber, because when they backed away, we knew that was the end of an era. And it was all of a sudden got really quiet on the space station. One of the odd things, we shut the hatch and they stayed attached overnight, and then they didn't actually depart until the next day.
Yeah.
Like you just wanted to knock on the door and say, hey, come on, let's have dinner together one more time. But who would have thought? I mean, we couldn't have imagined at that time it would be almost 9 years before somebody came up to claim that flag. But I think it's really cool that Doug Hurley was, he put it there and he came to get it back 9 years later. Yeah. And Chris Ferguson will be up there soon. I'm cheering for Boeing and their team.
Yeah, I remember Sandy Magnus was on that crew too, and I remember we were trying to talk Fergie into trading you for Sandy, but he wouldn't do it. So she was a inventory machine.
Oh yeah, great.
So do you remember Cupola Corners? So here's note about Cupola Corners. Yes, I think Chris Ferguson was the first one. So Cupola Corner was this like we were saying, you have to come up with things to have fun, right? You have to come up with things to break the monotony of isolation. And one of those things that I did was to have these interviews. And I called them Cupola Corner, and that was inspired by something called Kiner's Corner, which was Ralph Kiner was a Mets announcer back in the 70s, I guess. And after the Mets game, he would pull somebody who was a VIP or MVP of the game and interview them about the game, right? And so I started this thing called Cupola Corner, and it was about the human experience of being in space and what it meant to do that. And I remember we did an episode, you and I, and I did it with my Russian crewmates and Japanese crewmates, and it's amazing how it doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is, that same awe and wonder of being in space, I think, really, really shines through.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was fun to do that. And one of the great things, space shuttle mission was short, intense, and you really had barely any time to look out the window. So one of the great things about living on the space station was you had a little bit of free time on the weekends. You can't run the shuttle short mission pace, 2-week mission pace for 6 months. And so, that was one of the real joys, was getting to look out the windows and stuff, and also getting to connect with people. So I was a scoutmaster at the time. And I did a Scoutmasters conference with all 35 boys of my troop from space. You know, how cool was that? It was cool to do. And that was part of, again, back to what do you do in the isolation? You find ways to reconnect to normalcy. So my guys were used to talking to me. When they were ready for their next rank, they would do a Scoutmasters conference as part of the last steps. And I maintained the normalcy by doing it with them. It was over a phone radio link kind of thing, but it was a way to maintain some normalcy there. And we were able, fortunately, from the space station to call our wives, you know, tried to call them, you know, every day. And we had a video conference every weekend. And so we connected to our loved ones via video, kind of like we're connecting to our loved ones around the country via video right now.
Yeah, and practical jokes go a long way too. I remember a few. Do you remember any?
Oh, something about a rabbit head.
Oh, there was that. Yeah,
that was fun.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody about that one.
No, we can't tell anybody about that. The statute of limitations has not expired on that. But I remember one time, I was actually on the phone.
A real rabbit head. Okay.
Yeah. You know, I was on the we, like Mike said, we have a onboard phone, and I got word up from somebody who knew George Bush Sr., the first President George Bush, that he was feeling ill and that would appreciate a call from space. And so I called him. I was on the phone with him. And I remember at some point during the conversation, I said, Mr. President, you know, my crewmate, Mike Fossum, you know, he's a Texas A&M grad, and, you know, I know you have the library there and everything. He would really enjoy saying hi. Is it okay if I put him on the phone? Oh, of course. Yeah. So I knocked on your hooch and said, hey, Mike, I got a friend that wants to say hi to you. Do you mind saying hi to my friend? He said, sure. And then President Bush was on the other line. Right?
Yeah, that was good. That got me all right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he is a beloved in Aggie land.
Yeah.
Soul. He and his wife Barbara they became the hugest Aggies ever, and it was neat to talk to. And I think they were at kind of Kennebunkport at that time, and he wasn't feeling very well, so. Yeah. Neat to talk to him and other people. We had the chance to reach out to people who were really good at that.
Yeah. So, you know, when we were up there was a number of things going on. I remember there were some really big forest fires. There was a number of hurricanes, and it's kind of a weird thing to be up there when disasters are happening on the ground. And, you know, I can only imagine what it must be like now for folks to be up on the space station when everything that's going on around the world with COVID-19 and everything that's associated with that, whether it's the economic implications and everything. I mean, we're living through pretty dramatic times right now. I like to classify this period of time right now as we're in the midst of the great transition. Yep. We are in a transition right now, and we're going to come out the other side somewhat different. What are your thoughts on just what it's like to be going through? I mean, the things that were happening on the ground when we were there were not as no,
we were fortunate. Nothing. Yeah. It was nothing, huge going on in the world. And we did see, Superstorm Sandy coming up the East Coast. I remember doing live weather reports and looking at that. And hurricanes, when you've been through them on the ground, and I've been through a bunch, they're just as terrifying to see from up above. And that one was a big, ugly one. And what I remember about that one too was you see it coming, and it's coming, and then it's hitting the shore, so you know what's going on the ground down there. And the next day there was still a lot of clouds. It was probably 2 days later that the storm had moved on and the sky was clear, and we were flying up the East Coast. And you can't really see the direct damage, but what I remember seeing were these plumes of muddy water that were running off of the East Coast and making these big plumes of brown muddy water out into the Atlantic. And that represents the floodwaters and homes and everything else that's being carried.
I think it makes you feel more connected to. I mean, because you feel like you're there. I mean, it's
Yeah.
you're seeing it happen with your own eyes from a different perspective. But
in a way, but we were also fortunate. Nothing tragic happened in our families or immediate loved ones and stuff like that. So I think that's when you're really hurting.
yeah,
And we've had friends, and even crewmates that have had things like that happen while they're on orbit that are just family tragedies that you're separated from. And Ron, that's exactly the thing that's going on right now.
Yeah.
My mother-in-law's in an assisted living facility, and we can't see her. We go stand at the window, and I grieve about that. I don't know if I'll ever get to hug her again.
Right.
I don't know when this is going to reach the point of safety, where it would be safe to. And she's had some medical problems during this time, and that's the kind of stuff that's really hurt, really causing the heartache in the biggest way. For other stuff, we're hunkered down, and life is changing and we're coping. And I know I have not been watching any Netflix or other stuff, but those are the kind of things that hurt that we're still sorting out.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a really good point. Everybody, whether they're in space or their feet are planted firmly on the ground, is in an expeditionary situation where there is a level of isolation being put on everybody that you just can't jump on a plane and go be with a loved one, even if it's their last moments. And that's what we face. That's the biggest fear on the space station, is that something happens to somebody on the ground and you can't be there. And now that's happening to just about everybody. So, or everybody's in that position where if something happens, they can't be there. And so that fear is hovering over everybody. So
that one has become so much more clear in the last couple of months to me, that one has taken a toll on everybody. I've had friends lose family members, loved ones, elderly parents, and and there's this guilt that they're not there with them.
Right.
Just that pain. We're all feeling it.
Yep. Which we can transmute that sorrow and that heartache into a greater unity, right? Because we are all experiencing that together, and that should be a way for us to derive some empathy and compassion and solidarity out of that, hopefully.
Yeah.
So let's turn the view around a little bit, because here's one of our viewers from Cork, Ireland. The other night or last week, I guess, my wife Carmel and I hiked up to the Flatirons in Boulder, and we sat out there and we were waiting for the comet. So we were waiting for the sky to get dark enough that we could see the comet. And I didn't know this was going to happen, but right where the comet was going to be, the International Space Station flew by. And, just to think that star, that fast moving bright star, has got 6 people on it that and they just flew through the comet, not really, obviously, but
you helped build.
Yeah.
Right.
So
we helped both part of it together.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on when you go outside and you see the space station going over?
Two. One is I'll go out alone, just to go see it when I know there's going to be a good pass. I've been known to pull my car off to the side of the road, checking my watch, saying, okay. And, and there it is. I also love sharing it with other people. I was at a Texas A&M Former Students Association leadership retreat in Whistler, Canada, last October. And it's pretty high in the mountains. I'd never been to Whistler before. And there were, a number of people there. And I had the ISS tracker app on. And I said, hey, come with me. And we're way north, right? We're pretty close to 51 North. And so the station made multiple passes every night. And, what are we going to look at? Just stay with me. And we're watching, and here it comes. And I said, that's the space station. No. Yeah. So sharing it with other people, and we emptied out the lobby area of the restaurant as people were hollering and bringing more people out to see it.
Yeah.
And so it's really neat to do that. It's like you can see it. Yeah, it's the biggest, brightest thing in the sky except for the sun and the moon.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know, but just to think of it, and I helped design it as an engineer before I was an astronaut, and then helped build it on spacewalks. And, you know, we lived up there, put a big piece of our lives into that thing. And it's so cool to see it, you know, still flying.
Yep. Yep.
A continuous human presence for 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Hopefully it is indefinite.
Yeah.
That it never ends. So,
yeah. Well, nothing's indefinite.
Well, I meant that forever from now on, that we always have a continuous human presence in space. So,
yeah.
So speaking of shelter in place, the name of this little show, we had the opportunity, if I could call it an opportunity, to shelter in place on the space station. Do you remember that one?
Oh boy, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a scary day. That was probably the biggest scary day we had.
You know, so to bring everybody up to speed, we had a piece of space junk. Normally, so all the space junk that orbits the Earth above a certain size is monitored, and if one is going to fly close to the space station, then we'll move the orbit of the space station. We'll raise it or lower it to just get it out of the way. We'll just nudge the orbit a little bit. Yeah. But for whatever reason, there was a fairly large piece of space junk heading towards the space station, and we didn't know about it with enough time. So all we had time to do was, well, we didn't have enough time to move the space station. What we did have enough time to do was close every single hatch on the space station. And there were 6 of us on board. 3 of us got into one Soyuz spacecraft. The other 3 got into the other Soyuz spacecraft, and closed the hatch and actually took off metal clamps that held the spacecraft to the space station. And so we were one push of a button away from undocking. If we needed to, and I think we had about 15 minutes to spare.
Yeah.
Once we closed that. But do you remember? I just researching my book. I just listened to the air to ground or the space to ground radio transmission. Do you know what we were doing before we got into the drill of a fire drill? I mean, why would we be doing a fire drill before an actual emergency? But anyway, we were. So we finished up the fire drill, and then we did that, and we had about 15 minutes to think. And the object ended up passing within 1,000 feet of the space station, traveling at 30,000 miles per hour.
That's hypersonics. Yeah. If it's big enough to track, barely big enough to track, that's why they had a late read on it. That's like parting your hair with a rifle bullet.
Yeah.
It would have exploded the space station if it would have hit a pressurized part of the station.
Right.
Shockwave if we just unzip it, and now I just found out my Milani is actually on here, and she just heard some things she hadn't heard before.
oh yeah. Well, I think she probably got a phone call that like 4 o'clock in the morning that day. I know Carmel got a phone call saying, and and Carmel asked one question, said, "Are they in the Soyuz? Did they close the hatch?" And they said, "Yes, they're in the Soyuz and they closed that." So,
we could do something about it, but our Soyuz was vulnerable too, and so we were praying that this thing would just pass. It was it'd be a miss. And when we worked our way kind of back toward the middle of the station, and we had to work our way to our own individual Soyuz. And I remember, we got, shook hands and said, "Well, hope to see you in a few minutes."
Yeah, for lunch. Hope to see you for lunch.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking to myself, we just spent, I don't know, an hour or something of really tough work to get everything closed. We got a whole day of work ahead of us. If we don't die in the next few minutes, we're going to have to undo everything we just did. So I did end up trying to take a nap for those 15 minutes, but in the background of it is there's something heading right for us, and we might have a few more minutes to live.
And we can't see it, and they couldn't track it with that fidelity. They just knew it was going to be coming scary close. They didn't know how close. Yeah. We didn't have time. We can't zoom the engines like they do in the movies, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
It just didn't make any sense on a show called Conversation Sheltered in Place to not talk about an actual shelter in place drill that we had.
From Evan, if anything over 1 centimeter could probably breach. So then they can't reliably track it until it's about 10 centimeters. So there's a lot of space debris that's between 10 and 1.
Yeah, I distinctly remember getting, I don't know if this was on the IP phone or whatever, of being told that the object is believed to be a spent upper stage, which would be like a grain silo.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't think they've ever really figured out what it was, but I remember in the back of my mind thinking that something like a grain silo was heading towards us. So.
Yeah, that'd be bad. And the station's been hit by significant things. There's been some holes punched through handrails that looked like a broomstick pushed through wet clay. And
so on our spacewalks, going down the space station, you'll see craters on the.
Yeah, and the leading edge, especially like the PMA 2, that's painted black, that's kind of into the wind, if you will. If you look at it closely, it looks like the road rash on an old Chevy truck with the 200,000 miles on it, with all those little tiny road chips.
Yeah. Well, Mike, we're coming up on the hour, we're over the hour. Do you have any parting words of advice or wisdom to folks about how to deal with this crisis that we're in? What things could look like on the other side? Isolation, hostile environment, any of those things?
Before I jump into it, I want to do a quick shout to a couple of great Aggies in here, Mike Flood and Carol Snowden, very good friends that are jumped in. But I think in general we've talked about it, it's taking a breath, taking care of yourself, taking care of those around you, and recognizing we can't fix it all. We can't fix the world. And right now we have, I hate the words, back to normal or new normal, because the truth is we have no idea what it's going to look like. It's going to be different. We know that there's a lot of forces tugging on us as a planet, and as well as a nation, and some of them, very unexpected and intractable, really hard to work through and work with. And so just give everybody around you a little grace and realize everybody is hurting, in some way.
Yeah. Everybody's dealing with something. And so you know what, maybe I'm going to tell just one last story if you give me two minutes, because there's it's my way of showing some gratitude to you for the time that we've spent together, not only in space, but training to be in space, the 4 spacewalks we've done together, the shuttle mission we did together, the months that we spent in space during Expedition 2028. But probably the thing that I'm going to thank you for the most is the end of the last spacewalk that we ever did. So Mike and I did the last space shuttle based spacewalk. We were the last 2 people to ever be in the payload bay of a space shuttle in space. And when our spacewalk was over, we've been out 6 or 7 hours, I don't remember. I was pretty happy to be back in the airlock. We had all of our tools and equipment back in the airlock. All we had to do is Mike had to climb in, close the hatch, check this one complete, because spacewalks, believe it or not, are pretty dangerous. And so it's always good when you're back inside and we're not doing it anymore. So, but
you're scaring my wife again.
Yeah, but it's water under the bridge. Yeah. So there I was inside the airlock. The spacewalk was over, and Mike says, "Hey, Ronnie, why don't you come back out for a second?" And I'm like, "What's up, Mike?" "Well, come out, you'll see." And so I come out and I just see Mike hanging on the bottom of the airlock, big grin. His gold, it was night, so his gold visor is up. I could see his face, big grin on his face. And I look out over his shoulder and I see this teeny tiny, kind of like that right there. This teeny tiny little glowing iridescent blue line. We were approaching into orbital sunrise. And then I knew exactly what was going on. We're never going to, well,
No.
Limitations.
Come on.
So we're never gonna probably do a spacewalk again, and this is the last time we'll be outside in the vacuum of space and see a sunrise. Let's just enjoy this. So for the next 5 or 10 minutes, we just hung on the bottom of the space station. and watch the sunrise. And with that, I remember I patted you on the shoulder. I went back inside, and you followed me in, and that was the end of the last spacewalk of the space shuttle era. Right?
Glorious. I mean, to see that sunrise.
Yeah.
You know, and you have 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets in a day, right?
Yep.
You go around the Earth in an hour and a half, but to just watch it develop from blackness, and you can see, I mean, the stars, the Milky Way is almost solid up there. The stars with no twinkle. It's just amazing when you can light adapt outside, and the ground going by, the moon, you know, even illuminating the ocean and the clouds. You see the city lights, you know, and all those kind of things coming by. But when you see that little bit of light on the horizon, it starts off with a small little bit, and it grows. And you see layers of the atmosphere with different shades of blue that are coming up. And then the oranges and yellows start peeking in, and it's spreading. It's getting taller and wider. And you see all these layers. And then just the sun peaks over the horizon, and it just nukes you in the face. It was so intense because we had our visors up, right? So you get the full blast, and that is a memory to lock in forever. I'm glad to share it with you, brother.
Yep. And you know, of all the things I have to thank you for, I thank you for those 5 minutes or 10 minutes for the most. So
yeah.
And thanks for being on in this conversation, and thanks for all the guidance and wisdom that you've shared. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people, and all the best to Texas A&M as they start get ready to start the next school year. I hope it's a great year, and that everything works out. Gig 'em.
Yeah. Thanks, Ron. It's been great to talk to you and share it with all the folks that you've got on this webcast and stuff. It's been a lot of fun.
All right. All the best, Mike. Hope to see you soon in person.
You bet.
See you. Thanks to everybody who tuned in, and thanks for all the great questions and comments. All the best. Cheers.